Good.
Go.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're here to talk about the transition from CPSE to CSE. To start with, my name is Bethany Nightingale. I'm the coordinator of preschool and elementary special education, along with me.
And I'm Lori Newcomer, your Committee on Preschool Special Education chairperson.
So just to kind of preset a little bit, you have the ability to type in any questions. When we get to the end of our presentation, we will review and leave some time to answer those questions for you.
So what we really want to talk about today is what the next steps are. So, you know, what the different next steps are, different options, different things along this path that we're going to be going through together this spring. So right now, the next thing that to be planning on is attending the Committee on Preschool Special Education annual review. We'll get together there. We'll be reviewing progress for the year, talking about that. We'll make plans and determine eligibility for any services that occur during the summertime. And then we will also, as a group, be making a recommendation of whether or not we need a Committee on Special Education transition review to begin planning going into kindergarten. One question that comes up a lot is people ask, is continuation automatic when your child goes to kindergarten? And the answer is no, because we are really considering each student's needs individually. Some children, when we go to our annual reviews this spring, we may be looking at declassification from the Committee on Preschool Special Education. So if your child is declassified, what would happen is that we make a decision of when that would be effective. Most often that's the end of the school year. Sometimes it can be after the extended school year, and sometimes it's within a short period of time after the meeting. That all depends on where your child is and you know, what the progress has been and achieving their goals. So we work on that together. Your preschool records, that's a question comes up a lot too. What happens with those? So we keep them in our office unless I get your consent to share them. So I'll talk with you about that. We have a form that we can send to you. And if you would like that, then what we do is we share those records electronically with the elementary building. And what's shared is the individualized education programs and any evaluations that have been completed. They have access for a period of time to those electronically, and then that access gets removed over the summertime. Another next step for you is kindergarten screening, kindergarten orientation. At those times, it's up to you, but it may be something that you want to share with that team. If your child had been receiving services, what they had been working on. It's nice in that that team then can pass that on to the kindergarten classroom, and they can continue to monitor, make sure everything's continuing to go in that positive direction. Things have gone so far. At the CPSE meeting, we may also be talking about moving forward towards the Committee on Special Education transition review process. So Committee on Special Education is the school age committee. We make that recommendation at our annual review. We're going to be you know, just thinking about, talking about what the different needs are. And then we will share records with an elementary school team. So a team is chosen for each student. If you're just, your base school is your one school and it's your home school, then we share with that team. If you're in a flex zone, a team is chosen in order to work with all of that information. That does not necessarily mean that is the elementary school your child will go to, but we need an elementary team to work on it. And on that team, there's a school psychologist, we have a special education teacher, And then related service providers as appropriate. So there could be a speech language therapist, occupational therapist, physical therapist, whatever it is that we need for reviewing everything. So the first thing that team does is they review those records. Then they will do some interviews with if there's a preschool special education teacher, with preschool providers, or a general preschool teacher. They will do that. If your child is receiving services from a special education teacher, so the special education teacher might be pushing into your private preschool, or your child may be attending a special education program. That's when we plan observations to go into the classrooms, and the team goes to see, along with CFC chair people. Then during all of this review, one important thing that they're looking at is, do they need more information? Do we need to do a full reevaluation? Any additional assessments beyond what our most common transition review process? They make those decisions individually. Most of the time, the preschool teams have really done a lot of work getting everything ready, and we're in good shape to move forward. But every now and then, we need a little more information, and if that does happen, you, of course, would be part of that conversation, and we would be looking for your consent to get any additional assessments or reevaluation completed. And then later in the school year, going to be having CSE meetings where you make the decisions on eligibility going into kindergarten. So there are some differences between eligibility for the Committee on Preschool Special Education and the Committee on Special Education. In preschool, we've got 5 developmental areas that we look at. We're thinking about cognitive development, adaptive skills, so that's all of that self-help, communication, so expressing yourself, understanding language, speech is in there, social development, so having social skills, social interactions, emotional regulation, and motor skills. That could be both fine motor and gross motor. And the criteria with which we're looking at is, how does this impact participation in age-appropriate activities? And the state gives us like scoring guidelines. So we're looking for scores that fall at a certain point, or a developmental delay at a certain point. It's pretty straightforward.
So then when we go from the CPSC, which really looks at that impact on the participation, and move to the CSE takes a little bit of shift in looking at what is adversely affecting your child's ability to access that education. When we do that, we look at 13 possible areas to qualify and classify your child under. So those 13 areas. So mainly these are the 13 areas that we have. In those 13 areas, we see a couple that are very common. So speech and language or language impairment is something that is very frequent with children coming, especially at this age range, into the CSE world. Other health impairment, which could contain any type of medical diagnoses or multiple different areas impacting your child, and then autism. There are the other areas that we do see, but just not as common as those 3 as of right now.
For some families, you are considering alternative plans for kindergarten. Sometimes a birth date might fall late in the year. You're thinking about an additional year of preschool, sometimes thinking about going to a private school junior kindergarten, and sometimes you're thinking of choosing a private school kindergarten. So what we do is I'll be asking about the plans, the things that you're thinking about at our annual review, and passing that information on to the CSE teams. It helps in planning. There's still different avenues for access to special education services, depending on but they look different depending on the path that you choose. So at that meeting, we will talk in detail about what would apply specifically based on the type of plans that you are thinking about. But a really important thing to note from all of this is that if you are thinking of that and your child is eligible for services going into kindergarten through the CSE, in order to receive any special education services while doing any of these other alternative kindergarten plans, you must, in writing, provide a letter to the district, and that has to come in by June 1st. I have templates for families to use to make that a little bit easier for you.
So kindergarten registration. This is another area that we often get questions or is sometimes overlooked. We know that you have already registered to receive the services that your child is currently receiving, but you will need to register again for kindergarten. Great news, there is a shortened process, so you won't have to go through the complete paperwork process again. Right now, we are working on streamlining that process for you, and as that is completed, you'll get an email or a notification from the school to go ahead and move forward with the registration. So you must complete the registration if your child is going to attend one of the kindergarten and elementary schools. And as Lori said earlier, the school is not determined as of yet, but we do get those placements out later in the summer. If your child's going to attend a local private school or stay in preschool for another year, or even if they're going to stay at home. The stay-at-home part is important as well because that will allow us to consider the continuation of service for the education plan that's in place. So if your child is planning on attending a private school that's located within another district, that is the caveat. You need to register with that other district. That other district will then notify us that you live within our residence, but that they're going to help implement that education plan for your child.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the differences between the preschool special education and school education, special education programs and services. So, and some of the things that are the same. So related services are very similar. We have speech language therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, just like we at the school age level, just like we do at the preschool level. One thing that can be different is that at the school age level, all of those related services happen in the elementary school setting. We know at the preschool setting, in some cases, those services could be in the home or in the daycare in a community setting. So once you transition, everything is at the elementary school. In the Committee on Preschool Special Education, we really have a lot of individual related services. And that is frequently because we're not going to be grouping people in their homes or in therapy rooms, things like that. It wouldn't make any sense. But at the school age level, we do have that option to do that more. And I don't want you to think of groups as a negative thing if that's something that is being considered for your child. It's actually really positive. They get peers that are role models, that they're working on things together. In the kindergarten classrooms, a lot of children are asking, when is it going to be my turn to go in that group? But they actually really benefit from working with other children. So we look at utilizing groups as much as possible for those reasons. In the Committee on Preschool Special Education, when we provide social work, oftentimes it can be through something called the parent counseling and training provided in the home when social workers are available. At the school, we don't have a social work component that goes into your home, but we do have social workers that provide counseling services in the school setting. And then we also now have the partnership with Behavioral Health Services North, where parents and your students, your children, can get that support through them. And that is, it's a private, so it's not, it's housed in our schools, but it goes through private insurance. Committee on Preschool Special Education, we have special education teachers who are itinerant that can go into your child's private preschool. We also have special classes in an integrated setting. What's most similar, sort of, to both of those is something called integrated co-teach. So integrated co-teach is in all of our kindergarten, elementary schools. And there's a special education teacher who is there for 2 hours of each day to work with the students. And there is individually considered including a teaching assistant for a different 2.5 hours, up to a different 2.5 hours of the day. So integrated co-teach provides more support than a special education itinerant teacher services, as that usually happens like 2 or 3 days a week for 60 minutes. So integrated co-teach, you have a teacher in the room for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. But it's different from a special class in an integrated setting. The name itself, it is a special class inside this integrated class. It's a heavier level of support. There is a special education teacher and a preschool teacher who are there together all day, and they have at least one other assistant supporting them. Most cases, there are 2 in that. And then at the preschool level, we have our special classes. And there's different ones. There's some have up to 12 children, some have up to 8. Those are the 2 most common. In the district, we also have special classes. We have they change based on the needs of the students. Currently, we have a strand of classrooms for children with significant needs on the autism spectrum at Greenfield Elementary. We have a strand of classes really designed to work on foundational learning skills and adaptive skills, sometimes attention needs and some other things. And that series is at Geyser Road. And then there is another sequence of classes at Lake Avenue that works with students who's maybe really working on some age level academic skills, but emotional regulation behaviors can be interfering with their progress. And therefore we can look at that. And finally, there are special classes out of our district when and they're very specialized. Some of those, at Prospect, at Langen School, they have programs designed for children that need to have significant physical and adaptive needs. There are other programs designed out of district for autism and significant management kinds of needs. So there are other things that we can look at too, as needed for each child.
All right, so one potential route, should your child not continue to qualify for an individualized education plan, is a 504 plan. A 504 plan comes under the civil rights legislation. And really, it's based on a specific diagnosis or medical needs of your child. What it does is helps allow that access to the educational environment. There's some things that are very similar to what you would find in an IEP. Basically, there's accommodations and modifications that are outlined and detailed per whatever that diagnosis or medical need is and what they need in place to access that environment. One of the other big differences is there are no goals. So in IEP, there'd be specific goals and areas that the student needs to work on to help get them and bridge those gaps that they're having. Where in a 504, there wouldn't have that need for those goals. A 504 is something that is supported right within a general education classroom by that classroom teacher, where an IEP is supported depending on where the environment is that Lori, just detailed and went over, but you have a case manager that oversees that document.
So some things that you can do to help yourself prepare for that transition is just becoming, more familiar with this whole process that we've been talking about. you could reach out to the elementary building. The school psychologists serve really as the main contact person. They'll have reviewed records, they'll be the most familiar, and they're a great place to start. If your child is working with agencies or individuals that you've not already been shared with the Committee on Preschool Special Education, it could be helpful to share those if you are comfortable with that. We use all of that information it just gives us more information. The more that we have, the better that we can plan. Prepare questions to ask. And you can contact me, your CPSC chairperson. You can contact Bethany with any questions or concerns that you have. And on the next page, it does list the contact information for all of us, as well as our assistants our assistants are really answering scheduling questions, meeting dates, basic kind of questions. But everything else related to specific special education planning, then you can reach out to us.
All right, so we'll take a look and see if there is any questions for us. So the first one, what about swim PT?
So the district we do not have a pool, and we do not have aquatic PT. Often when you get to school age and you're thinking about physical therapy needs, they start because everything school age has that adverse educational impact focus. So there becomes this difference when you're looking at physical therapy of what are clinical needs and what are educational needs. And most of the time, the swim PT can become more of a clinical need. Our physical therapist from the school district will definitely talk with you more about that.
So our next question, we are zoned for Dorothy Nolan. Do they have programs available for kids with autism? So in part, as Lori ran through and talked about the different special class options that we have, first, before we got to the point of determining the special class, we would go through all the paperwork and meet with the current placement of your children, just kind of speaking to all of you, and get a good sense of what it is that they need in place. And then determine if it was a special class that would best support them. Oftentimes, Lori will take, or myself will take you as a family to observe the special classes, and those are decisions that we make together. In terms of our programming for kids diagnosed with autism, right now they are located at Greenfield Elementary School, so we have a strand of those classes there. However, I will say we do have several children diagnosed with autism in our general education classrooms in their home schools.
And autism is a wide spectrum. So.
Okay, any other questions?
All right, well, just feel free to reach out if you have any more questions. Glad to answer those, and looking forward to seeing all of you at meetings very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.